All right. Welcome back. Happy New Year's, everybody. It is 2024, and this is our first episode of Destination Success in 2024. Today, I have a rock star. He's a national guy. He's not a local guy to Delaware to us. His name is Zac Carlin, and Zac has come to us on the unconventional path. Isn't that how we all got here in entrepreneurship? Is the unconventional path. So he played 3 sports professionally, and then he had an injury that obviously took him out of that. And then he started flipping gyms. Wow, I bet you that's got some stories to it. And then along the way of getting into the coaching industry and business, he's done some executive leadership coaching for companies like HP, Salesforce, TAMKO. And today he's the co-owner of Summit Chasers Network. I'd like to introduce Zac. Zac, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. So happy to be here in your first one in the new year.
Yeah, no, I thought it'd be great because your topic is scaling businesses, and there's nothing more scarier than trying to grow the business and do it the right way because everybody's scared to death to let go. So I thought this would be awesome to start off 2024. The new year, new me kind of thing. Like, let's start the resolutions, let's get all the goals together. And I figured, hey, let's just start out with blowing the company wide open. You know what I mean? So
let's go.
So why don't you give us a little bit about what you do, who you are, and and something about, Summit Chasers Network.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I appreciate that. So I, like you said, unconventional, which a lot of entrepreneurs have a typical, not so typical background when they get into it. So I'm from a small town in Canada. Actually didn't graduate high school initially. I was homeless and addicted to drugs when I was 18. And I had to kind of pull my way out. So that's what got me into sports. Sports was kind of what pulled me out of it, particularly fighting. So I was a professional mixed martial artist from 19 to about 23. Got injured from there, got into CrossFit itself, competed all over the world in CrossFit. While I was doing CrossFit, that's when I found out that I was a hobbyist entrepreneur. Because I was from a small town, so I had to move back to kind of my farm town. Didn't have a gym to train at, and I had a little bit of money left over from my last few fights, so I bought into a gym. So I had somewhere to train basically, and it was in the city. So I set myself up in my gym, and I got our first P&L statement, and the number was really low. And I was like, wait a minute, I thought we have like 50 members. I thought that we were supposed to be making money. Turns out that's not how it works. Turns out it's not how it works. There's overhead and leases, and you got to pay people and all that kind of stuff. So
the gas, the lights, the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
Exactly. So I had to learn the hard way. I'm like, well, I want to make that number go up. Right, because I'm competing and I'm having a lot of fun and I'm doing this. I have a place to work out, but I want to be able to provide for the people, not just our clients, but the coaches and stuff that we have on board. I want to be able to provide opportunities for them. So I started to get obsessed with it, and again, I could because I would train 3 times a day, 6 days a week, and then during that off time, I don't move. My coach would say just relax, don't move. So I would read and I would do a lot of research on how do I make that number go up, basically. And we were able to scale that gym from, we were doing probably 13,000 a month, something like that. And by the time I left, we were doing just over 50,000 a month. And then I was able to offload that one because we had moved to a different part of the city, bought another gym on that side. And again, I was competing. I was just competing and then doing this kind of more as a hobby. And the flipping the gyms kind of was more of an accident. I wasn't focused on it. Not an accident. I just wasn't focused on it. And I did a very similar thing with this gym. That was called Bedrock Fitness. And we were able to flip that one. By the time I left, we were doing about 80,000 a month, which for those kind of boutique gyms is quite a bit. And then I actually held on to that one and I bought into another one. And then I was like, okay, I'm starting to get there's a cadence here. I'm starting to realize what works. There's, SOPs and stuff that I know work, and I can just kind of copy paste for the most part. And then I would learn a little bit more every time I did it. So how to diversify revenue streams, increasing, profit per square footage, marketing, getting the right people around you, really focusing on customer experience, bundling, all that kind of good stuff. So you learn a lot in the fitness industry when it comes to business and sales, because you're selling something that they might not achieve, right? You're selling a 6-pack and they can do everything right and they might not get a 6-pack.
Right.
Or they could buy the supplement, nothing would happen. Right. So you're kind of selling, you have to be very good at what you do, right? In order to succeed in that space. A lot of people scoff at it, but it's a tough place. It's a good foundation to have. So I ended up doing that with about 5 or 6 gyms. And then on my 6th one, we ended up starting a fitness equipment company. We didn't start it, but we latched onto one. And when we started, we were doing about 1.8 million. And then when I left about 2.5 years later, we were doing just north of 25 million. So we were able to scale that fairly quickly. And we had, there's a lot of things that went right. We got pretty lucky with a lot of stuff, but it was very rapid growth. So I learned a lot, especially around people, getting the right people around you, um, process development, systems, why that's so important. Again, diversifying revenue streams, creating a network, all that kind of stuff. So that was a big learning experience, and luckily it wasn't one of those learning experience by failure. So we scaled the business. I ended up exiting just due to some interesting people choices that were made, and then we moved back to Vegas. It happens. Moved back to Vegas.
It does.
And then we actually were going to take that money and open a gym with me and now ex-wife. But we had a daughter. I think my daughter was only about 6 months at the time. We were going to take that money. We were going to open up a gym in Vegas, and that was the end of 2019. Everybody knows what happened right after that time, right? So COVID hit, and we lost absolutely everything, hundreds of thousands of dollars just came in. And then I ended up having to, just to keep the lights on, having to get a job at Netflix. I set up an office in my garage because we just had my son at the time, so I had no space for an office. So I had to set up in the garage during the summertime in Las Vegas, and was doing customer service for Netflix until I could kind of regroup, so to speak, and pull myself up again. And then I got back into the fitness industry, and we started Next Play, which formerly before that was called Relentless University. So it was a kind of like a little fitness boutique in Vegas. It was a 1,500 square foot facility, and we actually ended up scaling that. So it was doing about 150K a month from a really small, again, boutique facility, just doing both online, in person. We're doing more life coaching at the time. So we're able to, again, really diversifying, really getting into our coaching chops. And then some of the processes that we developed, we had a couple of clients that were like, hey, this would really work for my team, like my executive team. And we're like, yeah, probably. I don't know. We can check it out and try it. So we got our first client, which was a bail bonds company from California, which is very far removed from fitness, may I add. And it ended up crushing it. We're like, well, let's do this. They pay way more than people wanting to get a six pack. So that's when Next Play was kind of born. And then we started working with some really, really cool companies. And I was able to get a lot of my executive coaching and experience from there. We scaled some really cool companies. We worked with a lot of smaller boutique companies as well. We were able to get some really good results. And then that ended up with me moving on to creating my own thing, which is now Summit Chasers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's a testament to your character of being an entrepreneur, is that no matter what hit you, you pivoted, you made it work for the second, and then you kept always having the long goal of, okay, here's where I want to be, no matter where I am today. And that's always a good testament to entrepreneurs, is that we're one of those people that we always keep ticking, no matter what we get hit with. So that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
We're resilient.
Resilient for no matter what. Yeah. So that's awesome. So let's so your topic is scaling businesses and things like that, and that's awesome. We'll go to Entrepreneur Magazine, and we always look for an article that we can not necessarily critique, but we personally say, yeah, that works, or they're like the real two entrepreneurs talking about an article written by probably someone that may or may not be an entrepreneur, and we just go over it. So I Googled it real quick, and the first article came up was 5 pitfalls to avoid when growing your business. Number 1, which I think is hilarious, is not knowing how and when to scale. So I'm going to let you start, because you're the coach of it. So basically, the first pitfall would be not knowing when or not knowing how to scale the business. I think when is normally the biggest one versus how. But you go ahead and get started, and we'll talk back and forth.
No, that's an interesting one, is the when to scale.
Right.
Because sometimes people companies will just scale without them really meaning to.
Right.
So a lot of our clients that we work with now, they started as solopreneurs.
Sure.
And then that solopreneurship, it turns into something. Like they hit their mark, whether they hit it quicker or they've just been at it for a long time. And then, when you're consistent, it kind of does that. It's not like a linear progression. And then
it's also community. Like
Exactly.
your branding gets going, and it takes a
Yep.
little. Sometimes it takes 3 months, sometimes it takes 3 years, but then all of a sudden it's like click, boom. Now everybody knows. All of a sudden you're overnight success. Like, wait a minute,
Yep.
where does this happen? So yeah, that's what you're saying. Like all
100%.
of a sudden, we've
Yeah.
been working at it, we're steady, and all of a sudden you walk in, and you're like, you got 4,000 orders. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Exactly. So the when is interesting, because you can set yourself up, and that's kind of what we focus on with Summit Chasers, is building that foundation that you can scale on. Where
Sure.
sometimes again, like they wake up, you're right, 4,000, something goes viral or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they have 4,000 orders, and then you're stuck having to, okay, I have to hire so many people right away. You kind of get stuck in that warm body syndrome,
Sure.
right? Where you're just filling bodies, you just need people to press buttons, sort of thing, and you're off to the races. So the when is just kind of when you're going to scale. Like, it's just when it happens. You can set yourself up. If you decide this year, okay, this is the year where we're going to expand into X market, or we're going to bring on this new type of product or service, or we're really going to, we're going to ramp up our marketing. So therefore we should have this many more clients. Therefore we need this many more coaches, or we need this many more, whatever your business is. Right. So it really, when you should scale is when, if you're choosing when you should scale, you're like, this year we're going to scale. Make sure, do you have the right people on your team that you're willing to delegate things to? Because if you're like, I'm going to scale this year and nobody else on my team can do what you do, make decisions, and if you're not willing to let that go either, and if you don't have the standard operating procedures to say, okay, here, you go take this, right, and then just report back to me with the outcome, and if you're not ready to do that, then you need to set yourself up first in order to be able to do that, or else you're going to get to that point and things are just you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to be stuck. Your people are going to get overwhelmed. You're going to end up having to rule with an iron fist, so to speak. You get that leader with 1,000 followers type of thing, and you end up getting stuck and end up going down almost further than where you started. You go backwards at that point, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny because we're just having this conversation in my office today. I don't know if you know, but my main focus of business is a catering company, and I've been around about 15 years. So in COVID, obviously, when they shut us down because we were the spreaders, events and things like that. I sat down. We literally had 3 weddings the weekend before the state of Delaware shut down, and everybody's in a panic. And we took care of all that. That Tuesday when we came back, I sat down with my managers and I said, A or B. I said, A is we shut down, or B is that we put our head down and we barrel through the storm and we figure it out as we go along. There's no answer, there's no book, and there's no script for this because this has never happened before. But between the 5 of us, if we're all going to work together and we take the pieces that we all should take, the 20% each, and when we work for it, it'll be a light load. If you're all 4 of you say you don't want to do this, then I'm just shutting down because I can't do the work of all 5 of us anymore. That's not where it's at. So you really have to come to that decision. Obviously we chose B, but you have to come to that decision, and your core group of people have to be on the same page as you, and you have to make sure that we're all together a system of this is where we want to be, because you can't have a major component that's not on the same page, because then you're going to be missing a teeth in the wheel as it goes around, and it's going to start slipping and jerking. And I couldn't agree more or 100% with that. I also think that the when part is sometimes people get stuck. Yes, sometimes you wake up with that 4,000 orders, but it's also you start getting busier than you were, and you still try to pretend you're still this company when now you have to be this company. It's the white knuckling effect that I don't want to let go, and I don't want to have multiple managers or other people doing certain part of the process because I know best. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the owner, I know best, nobody can do this kind of thing. And that it's some of the how, but it's like you said, you can't ever predict when the sales are going to change.
Yeah, and you have to really decide. That's another reason, like, it's so important to really know what type of company do you want to be, and who do you like. What type of company do you want to lead? Because if you're, because then that happens too, where companies scale and they don't want to. Right. I just want to be. I want to have. I want to have 200 customers. I want to have 10 people. I want to have 10 employees. Have a happy life, not be stressed out all the time, and just be able to go on vacations and do all this kind of stuff. But that's what you want. Then probably have to scale back a little bit. You probably have to tell yourself, okay, this isn't really what I want. So I'm gonna have to do something to scale back. I'll weather this storm, but I need to, pull back in the marketing spend or the outreach or whatever it is. or you know what I mean? Like you have to really be really, really clear. This is the type of company I want. But
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
if you're the type of company that wants to scale and be great, then you have to forecast that and set yourself up to be so. If you do not want to be, then don't overreach.
Right,
Right.
right, yeah.
So,
I mean, you definitely have to define where you want to be and what you want to do, and how much. Like you said, how much do you want to make? How much time do you want to spend? Like I'm at the point now where I have evolved a few different times that I am in the fourth quadrant. I am the entrepreneur that's overseeing everything. I put in the time that I have to, not the time. The time doesn't, basically mold me. Like I say, okay, these are the hours that I'm working. This is when I come in and coach. Okay, we have 5 weddings today. Yeah, I'm going to have to come in on Saturday and help out. No big deal. But it's not that every day I'm like, oh no, I can't leave because the sky's falling and the place is going to burn down if I walk out the front door. And that's what I've always said is where I want to keep leading in that direction, that the pyramid comes up and these 4, now 2 of them come to these 3, and then 2 of them come to those 2. And then eventually one of those people will lead up into that one position. And, and then I'm even more forward than and then we grow accordingly because you have to pay for everybody. And that's what I tell you. Like we have to have the sales to be able to have everybody's salary so everybody can still come to work every day. So yeah, you have to do it forwards and backwards, when you're planning that. So yeah. The next one was, which we were kind of discussing, is the second pitfall is clinging to daily responsibilities, and that gets back to my white knuckling and your death of 1,000 employees. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, it just with that you just have to understand, like you said earlier, is that you're surrounding yourself around awesome people, and awesome people don't mean that they're smarter than you. Awesome people is they're smarter at something you're not. Like you have to know that, and you have to understand that. I know accounting, but why would I do that? You know what I mean? Like it's not something that I love. It's not something that I'm like, oh, I get chills about. Like I hire somebody to do that. Like that's your specialty. Like now I know that's done. Everything's taken care of. The IRS is no issue. We're going to be reporting when we're supposed to be. Blah blah blah. Let's get back to what I do best. And then the next is like I'm horrible customer service. I really am. I love people and I love customers and love entertaining, but I'm not really necessarily the best at the customer service part, so I hired people that are good at it, and they take care of that. And then when there's the huge problem, then they come to me and we fix it, because I only have to deal with it 1 or 2, 3, 4 times, but you deal with that on an ongoing basis every day for the 500,000 customers you have, it would, I'd probably burn the business down. So,
well, that kind of comes down to, because when you're starting a business, right, you're a jack of all trades. You have
to,
you have to do a little bit of everything, right?
Well, because you can't afford people yet.
Well, 100%. And then when you start to grow, and if you want to scale, like there's a few things that have to happen. Like you said, I don't want to do the books. I don't want to do payroll. I don't want to do the marketing, right? You have to find out, first of all, what do you not want to do? And then hire for your gaps, and then find out what would be best for you to do. So what am I really good at, and what am I most interested in? Because then I know I can get really good at it because I'm interested in it, right? So you have to kind of define, okay, well, what is my role going to be in my company, right? Most of the time, if you're the business owner, you're the visionary. Most of the time, right? You're the one that needs to look outside from 10,000 feet and see kind of what's going on. You be able to zoom out, right? And then you need to be able to, again, what are you good at? What are you best at? What do you want to be doing? And then once you define what those gaps are that you need filled, then you need to hire for those gaps. Some of the things that, I've seen in the past, I've done it myself, is I hire the generalist all the time. I hire more of me. I hire the jack of all trades. Well, I don't want more of me. I want thought diversity. I want people who are going to do things and are better at things that I'm not good at, and they're going to think a little bit different and push me. Right. So we get stuck in, okay, this guy's good at everything. He scaled a business before. He's good at a little bit of everything, so he must be great. Well, no, if you want somebody to do your marketing, hire a marketer, hire a master at that, right? If you want somebody to take over your customer service, hire somebody who's ran a customer service team and is very good at customer service. Don't get stuck hiring these generalists, because then you're always going to be back. You're always going to have to be back in, because then you're all are just okay at everything.
Right.
So you are always going to have to be involved, rather than just, I'm not great at marketing, I'm going to hire a marketing master. I'm just going to check in whenever that cadence is for you, and say, okay, how are numbers looking? Do we have enough leads coming in? Do we have enough new prospects? Whatever your metrics are, and just check in on them, and then kind of get them to teach you a little bit, just enough so you can oversee it and hold them accountable. But you need to hire these masters. Don't get stuck hiring the jack of all trades too.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, because then you get back to the same thing. Then they want to do everything and not exactly what. So you thought they would be really good at this. They thought they were like, well, I get to play in all this. And they're like, no, I want you over here. And then they're constantly, pulling the shiny pendant syndrome where they're all over the place and not really focusing where you thought they should be. So
Exactly.
I know. I couldn't agree more with that. So why don't you give us maybe a learning lesson into scaling that, happens all the time with your companies that you're coaching, or, give us like maybe, one good piece of advice or something that we could, expand on.
Yeah, no, 100%. So one, I mean, we kind of touched on it already, obviously getting the right people around you. I mean, that one's been kind of beat to death in a lot of places. But I think when it comes down to how are you hiring, right? We hire based on, like, if I'm looking for somebody to hire, I hire, okay, you're going to be doing these day-to-day activities. This is the activity, as opposed to hiring people. Okay, this is what I need this person to accomplish. Right. So this is an accomplishment. So it could be the difference. So for example, let's say you're hiring an outside sales manager, right? You're at the point now where I need somebody to run my sales team. So you're hiring a sales manager. If you are trying to hire somebody to build a sales team for you, or if you're trying to hire somebody to come in and run and expand a current existing sales team, that's a different thing. Right. So you're not just hiring an experienced sales manager. You want to hire somebody who can accomplish what you need them to accomplish, which is build out and start a sales team. Maybe it's in a new market too. Okay, I need somebody who's expanded into new markets before, right? Because then if you plug somebody in there who has a lot of experience, looks really good on paper, can do all the day-to-day activities, but has only worked in, markets that they've been engraved in already, then they're not going to be the right person for the role. You're going to set them up and yourself for failure, right? So it's when you're hiring, okay, what do I need this person to accomplish? And then I create the avatar off of what I need them to accomplish.
Explain avatar, because that's a really good adjective that a lot of people don't understand. Like, what explain what the word or the verb is used for avatar. So
so avatar it's the ideal person to accomplish a goal, right? So, and by that, the avatar is just a collective of their attributes, right? So if you're in a market, they say it a lot in like marketing, like, who's your avatar? Who are you selling to?
Sure.
Well, I'm selling to, we'll talk to one of my window companies. Okay, so our target market is between 35 and 55. They're in these types of demographics. They like football, right? They're probably mostly in red states because we're a veteran-owned company, right? And you put all these attributes and characteristics like the psychography and demographic together, right? And you create this avatar of like the perfect client, perfect prospect, or perfect person to fit in your role, perfect new employee. So what are all these attributes and characteristics? What are all the past experiences as well? And you create this like avatar. If you're somebody who plays video games, right, and they have some of the games, they have like attributes for your character, like strength is 90 and speed is whatever. Right. You want to build out, what do I need those numbers to look like for my ideal X, Y, and Z? Yeah, right. And that's your avatar.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you should build that for everything, for your customer, for the employees, for your managers, for your vendors. Like, you want to make sure and always have all that together. Because when you don't do that type of homework, that's where now you have the gaps in things, because you didn't really do the full research on what you're, and it's most important in your customer, because what happens is not all customers are good customers. And you need to know what is and what is not, and why it is and why they are not your customer. So
I might disagree with that a little bit, only because just because I've seen this a lot before and I did it myself, is if you're not very meticulous on the avatar for the person you're trying to hire, then you miss out on the cultural fit piece. Because if you could bring somebody who's very good at what they do, they can press all the buttons, dot all the I's, do what you need them to do, but they're a terrible culture fit. And they come in and they're, they call them like the silent terrorists, right? Where they're really good at what they do, but they don't like anybody, or nobody likes to talk to them. They start little internal, beefs, whatever you want to say.
Oh no, I couldn't agree more.
A lot of that.
That's the beginning of cancer. You know what I mean? Yeah, you got to get rid of that fast. Yeah, no. Yeah, I was talking more of the customer part of likes and like who they are and why they are. Not the
100%.
Everything you do in your business should all come from culture. You have
Yeah.
to set the culture, and then everybody should follow the culture you want to set. And sometimes it gets tweaked and you pivot, but we're all doing it together. And again, that was back to my reference with COVID, is that, I sat them down. I'm like, okay, either we're going to do this as a team because that's what we do, or we're not going to do it as a team because, I'm not going to sit here and pull all the weight because you guys aren't sure, so yeah, you have to have that culture. I think that's, as you grow and as you're scaling, I think that's the most important thing, because you get too many cancers in too many spots. It lights the place on fire, and you're constantly here and then here and then here and then here. And like, what happened? I thought we were all family, and and you are, but you're the Hatfields and the McCoys, and the people don't like each other anymore. And next thing you know, we have all these rivalries going on. He said this, and I'm not doing that for him anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's important to, and again, whether you want to be a medium-sized business, just stay as a small business, or whether you want to, get to $500 to $1 billion, you got to do it quickly. You got to do it soon. Like, set those core values, your principles, your business principles. You got to do it early on. Like, well, I only have 5 employees. Why would I do it right now? Well, you only had 5 employees. You all were in line. And if your 5 employees were not completely bought into the vision, they didn't have, very similar core values. They weren't bought into the core values of the company. And the 3 of them didn't want to follow through with that because they weren't as bought in as you were. Like, you might not be here. Might not be where you are. Right. So it's so important to do that early on.
But when you do that early on, once you hire your first couple of people, then you figure out you have to hire a couple of people. I would say 1 to 3 is when you're starting to set the culture, because then yes, we always think it revolves around us as the entrepreneur, but it's really, you're the patriarch of the community. But now you have to figure out what the religion is. What are we doing as the community? Yes, I'd like to make sure that it still follows all my key factors, but we have to let everyone add into that, so that we're all putting in the pot and it's all our stew. It's not just one person's vision. It has to be all of our vision, because that's when they'll die for you in the trenches. Like when you're in battle, people will die. And again, back to my cover, they were ready to die. They're like, no, we're doing this. We're going to fight in the trenches with you, and we're going to come out of this on the other side. And that's when you have, that's when I knew, okay, I have this culture. Just let's continue, let's enhance it, and keep going.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, you're absolutely right. Like, you have to have those first few hires, and you're probably not going to find the right people right away. Because if you think about, like, again, we kind of talked about it, entrepreneurs, like, we're kind of crazy. Like, we dive in.
We're not kind of crazy. We are crazy.
We're very crazy. We're nuts. We're absolutely nuts. And we have these huge, crazy dreams and visions that we think about before we go to bed. And it's the first thing in our mind when we wake up. It's the first thing, it's the only thing in our head, for the whole day, right? Whether we're taking our kids out to eat or driving down the street or whatever it is, right?
24/7.
24/7. We're watching a movie. That's all we're thinking about. It's like, oh, that was a good idea. How could I do that? But then to bring on that side, but that's us. We're the entrepreneur. We're the one. We take risks, right?
Yeah.
But to bring people on your team who aren't necessarily risk takers, so to speak, but they're just as bought in and just as kind of crazy as you are in a way, like, that takes, you're probably not going to get it right the first time. And then once you do get it, then you're right. Once those people come in, you'll kind of be like, okay, this is the type of people that I need on my team. This is the type of people that are bought in. Now let's together create this, the culture, the core values. So I like once you again, I agree. Once you get to like that 3 or 5 mark, if you can afford it, do like an offsite. You don't have to go anywhere fancy. Do an offsite and come up with the core values, come up with the principles, come up with what the vision, what your North Star is, and come up with it early. Once you get these crazy people that are bought in, do it then, right? As opposed to waiting till you get 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people on your team, because then it's so hard to pivot. And then you'll see like, oh, if half these people aren't even in line, what do I do now? Yeah, and then it's so much harder. Yeah, it's way tougher. And you can do it. I'm not saying you can't do it. You 100% can do it. We've done it before. I worked with a company that had about 288 employees, and they never had core values, never had principles. They didn't know how to follow them. They didn't follow them for the longest time. But we were able to do it. It just takes so much more time. And you start to find out, you start to answer questions you didn't even want to ask.
Right.
Like, should these people be on our team? Are they going to follow? Are these the people that are going to take us to the next level? Right. And sometimes they're people that you thought you'd be around for a while. You feel bad because you met their wife and their kids now and stuff. So do it early on.
Yeah, it's a little easier to do it early on. But it's funny because I did it backwards, is where I grew really fast, and then I figured out, oh shit, I don't like half the people working with me. And we have nothing in common, but we're really killing it. And then that day comes where now, it kind of settles down and everybody looks at each other. Like you're all looking at the dining room table, like, yeah, I really don't want to be here. And you're like,
I don't wanna be here.
here goes the regrowth build one more time, But then you figure it out, like, okay. And don't be scared to make choices and to hire. I say hire slow and fire fast. And if I have learned anything is that you're not changing them. When you hire them, they're going to tell you everything they think you want to hear. But it's just like any kind of relationship. You're good for the first 3 or 4 days. Now, in the first week at the end, that's who that person is and will always be for the rest of their life. If you don't like them, the first paycheck or second paycheck, you're gonna not like them in 6 months. They ain't changing. So that's when you reevaluate. Like, hey, is this really where we want to be? And there's ways to talk it in and out, and have them be like, yeah, you're right. I don't think this is probably a really good fit for me, because people don't want to be uncomfortable. People do want to be in a place where they feel, where their talent is being accepted and being valued and they're making a difference, 90% of the time. Of course, you get the 10% of people who don't give a shit. Yeah. They just show up. But, 90% of the time, people want to be somewhere where everything aligns in their value. People don't like confrontation 90% of the time. So you're just doing everyone a favor at that point by recognizing, okay, I don't think this is going to fit now, because now the honeymoon period's over and now we are who we are. We're sitting on the couch watching TV going, yeah, I don't like this show. Well, I love it. Yeah, I don't think this is going to work.
Absolutely. And if you let that go, you have to think. So if they're your first 5 people on your team, they're most likely going to be like your first department heads, right? They're going to be the ones hiring. Sure. As you expand, they're the ones that are going to be hiring. So let's say you have 5 core values. One of these people, doesn't really abide by 3 of them, but they're a high producer, or they've done really well, and they're sticking around, whatever. They're just as crazy as you are. Yeah. They're the ones going out and hiring more people. So therefore they're more likely, because we tend not to hire up. Like it's hard for people to hire somebody who's better than them at something. Right. So most of the time, these people are going to hire somebody who's 80% as good as they are. Right. So they're going to be 80%.
Hopefully 80%.
That's a good. I know 80% is pretty good. Best case scenario.
That's high. Yeah, that's high. Yeah.
Let's say to hire people who are 75, realistically probably 60.
Yeah.
Or at least 80% as ingrained or would abide by the core values as they are, right? And then it just keeps getting worse as it goes down. So if you start out with people who aren't 100% on board with everything you're doing, it's going to get worse as they hire and bring more people on. And also, like, their influences, right? They're, whether positive or negative, we're all influences.
Sure.
So important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I really appreciate your time. It's been about 30 minutes. I try not to take it too long. I respect your time and appreciate you coming on. Is there any last minute thing you'd like to point out, or how do we find you? If somebody would like to hire your services or talk to you, how do we reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So summitchasersnetwork.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Summit Chasers Network, or Zac Carlin on LinkedIn. We're all over, I think we're on TikTok. I'm not sure. Somebody said we were, so maybe we are. Instagram, Facebook, all those kind of good places. We have a webinar coming up on February 1st. It's just going to be all on how do we abide by and how do we stay consistent with our 2024 business goals and personal goals. I think that's February 1st. I'll send you over a link.
I'll put it in the bottom.
Yeah, beautiful. But no, I'm just excited to be here. I love these kind of conversations, how they roll and everything. But if I had to leave everybody with some advice for whether they want to, if they want to scale their business or they want to stay where they are, just to take responsibility for everything that you do. If you have a bad hire and they're not producing, it's on you because you hired them, or you didn't set them up for success, or they didn't have the tools, or the way you're communicating to them wasn't conducive for them to hear you properly to get the outcome they wanted. So just take responsibility. If you don't take responsibility, it's really hard to learn. It's really hard to improve. So that would be kind of my parting advice.
Absolutely. And I want to double down on the consistency and accountability part. As being an owner, being consistent and being accountable for the consistency is key to everything. We just had this is the motto for 2024 is consistency and accountability, so that we can continue to grow at insurance catering. So, you gotta do it. It's not comfortable. It's not comfortable for everybody involved, but once you start doing it on a regular basis, it becomes easier and less uncomfortable. So yeah, absolutely. So Zac, I really appreciate your time. This is awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on, and helping my listeners and everybody that watches this, with some business knowledge. And, for all you guys, we'll be doing this next week. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing some comments. This will be everything will be a transcript, and there'll be the links and everything to be able to get a hold of Zac once I post it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.